Happy Devil's Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 71, titled Back to Basics. Oh yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get back to basics. I am your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks editor-in-chief, the infamous Nick Villano. Nick, this is all powered by Nova Product Design on the Primetime Radio Network, streaming live out on Facebook Live, Twitter Periscope, YouTube Live, Twitch, and soon possibly syndicated somewhere else, as we had to leave a webinar meeting for that. We're not going to tell you anything. Also, I want to also add that this is the last ever episode in the remote bunker studios that you see behind me, because we are building the new Primetime Radio Studios in an undisclosed location in New Jersey. It's going to be breaking ground tomorrow, and it's going to take about 3 to 5 months to build, probably be ready by January. But we will still be doing the live podcast. I just want to, get that programming note. Also, little somber. Just got word right before we went on live. Condolences to Tom Seaver's family. Tom Seaver just passed away today, I think at the age of 76. Me being a New York Mets fan, I actually switched my Devils cap to a Mets cap in honor of Tom Seaver. Tom Terrific, the real Tom Terrific. I know that Tom Brady tried to trademark that name, but he was terrific. The Miracle Mets of '69, power pitcher. He also did a lot of Yankees broadcasts as well. Very knowledgeable baseball guy. And when word came out that he suffering from dementia, he cut all of his public appearances, and he worked in his vineyard out in California, where he's from, and spent time with his family as he should. But the outpouring support of Mets fans all over the world for the Tom Seaver statue and honoring Tom Seaver. I thought that we mentioned that top of the show, Nick. I'm going to pass this on to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wrote on the Pucks and Pitchforks Twitter account, best pitcher of all time. And I know he doesn't get that kind of due. He doesn't even get to be in that conversation. But if you're going to put people like Pedro Martinez in there, and you're going to put people like, like Randy Johnson, somebody I've heard. I know Walter Johnson's a popular name that's in there, but he's a little old school, and he's very, very old, very, from way back. But I'm a person who studied a lot of baseball when I was younger, and that was kind of my forte before I got really into hockey and fell in love with hockey like I did. And, and I'm a Yankee fan. I'm not even a Mets fan. So I don't have any reason to say this. I'm not a biased fan trying to, get the best Met of all time, even more love than he already gets. But he does deserve more love in the greatest pitcher of all time discussion, if you ask me. I just think when you think about big games, when you think about carrying your franchise as a starting pitcher, has anybody done it better than he did with that '69 Mets team? And he just, if he was a pitcher that, like say you have like Garrett Cole right now, where the Yankees paid that guy to go out there and win the game as much as they possibly can, but he's struggling to do that. Seaver's a guy, when you look back at his stats, you look back at his, how often he was just dominant. He was always a guy who could just take that Mets team, put it on his back, go out there every, I don't know off the top of my head how many starts he had, but, back then it was every 3 or 4 days, going out there, being the guy and helping that team win. And Seaver was just one of the best to ever hit the mound. And at his peak, I don't know if I have anybody better. I might call him the best pitcher of all time. That's how I see it.
More of his generation, at least of his generation. Now think about this. I know we were going off tangent, and I see the show rundown, but I have to put this in there, Nick. I was born in '78, so I didn't get to see the big three in '69, where it was Seaver, Koosman, and Nolan Ryan. I mean, you think about those three. Now, I love Jacob deGrom, and Jacob deGrom's career is still being written, right? But anybody impactful like Tom Seaver, anybody in our generation, I would have to say someone like Roger Clemens, a power right-handed pitcher. And you know what? They don't make pitchers like they used to. Like pitchers back then, they go 8 innings. That's a prerequisite to be a starting pitcher back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And they pitched, and I forgot who. I don't know if it was Tom Seaver before he was. I forgot who. I think it was Tom Seaver. I think right before he got, diagnosed with dementia, that he was hooting and hollering about. I forgot who blew out their elbow. It was either Matt Harvey or I forgot who on the Mets. And he's like, it's because he's throwing 100 miles an hour. He's not pitching. He's just throwing, right?
Yeah.
Like he's throwing and then pitching. But again, our condolences to Tom Seaver's family. He no longer has to suffer anymore because that's a horrible disease. But moving on, we are a Devils hockey podcast. So back to basics. So we decided, normally we have guests, normally we have games. We decided to get back to basics on the last day of the studio where we started from. And this is how the podcast started, like from this room. We're going to podcast Devils hockey. And we're going to start off with Kyle Palmieri. I'll let you lead on this one.
Yeah, we've for weeks we've been having guests. We've been talking a lot of things, and I love having guests. Our guests are great, but they do sidetrack us and they put us in a box because if we have a prospect guest, we have to talk about prospects, whether they're top of mind or not. If we have a national person, we have to talk about what they're paying attention to, which is the playoffs. So we talk a little bit about the playoffs before we talk about Devils hockey. I just wanted to get. I didn't want this week to be anything about just you and me just throwing things together and trying things out. So I decided to erase the script entirely and go straight for just you and me BSing about Devils hockey and talking about everything that's happening this week. And there's a lot that happened. Sam, I don't know how there can still be a lot to talk about after all these months of the Devils not playing hockey, but there's just so many headlines. There's so many rumors, and the trade bait list just came out. TSN does a trade bait list twice. They do one for the offseason, and they do one for the trade deadline. And it's taking on the things that they hear around the league and ranking how often they hear a name in trade discussions. Now, number one on the trade bait list is the Pittsburgh Penguins goalie, Matt Murray. Which makes a lot of sense because their GM has come out and said that he's trying to trade them. He's had discussions about trading either Murray or Tristan Jarry, and I think that it's going to end up being Murray. I think he's trying to be coy, but one of them is going to get traded. But when you look down, a sight for sore eyes for Devils fans is number 7. 7 on the list is really high. 7 on the list is Kyle Palmieri. Just to give you an idea, Sam, of what 7 is on this list. Number 6 on this list is Shane Gostisbehere, who has been a healthy scratch for the Philadelphia Flyers, and he's making $4 million a year. And clearly they both want that relationship to end. And then number 8 on the list is Max Domi, who's been a wild. He's had so many trade rumors around him. this past week because he got a new agent. He fired Pat Brinson. He hired Taylor Hall's agent, Darren Ferris. And everybody said that Brinson and Mark Bergeron, the Canadiens GM, have such a good relationship. So the fact that Palmieri is ahead of a guy like that on the trade bait board just shows that there's just a good chance that he's hearing a lot of things that the Devils are hearing every offer. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that that means that the Devils are absolutely going to trade Palmieri, but I also don't think that making him available in trade is a bad thing. I think that there's a possibility that the Devils could come out really well in a Kyle Palmieri trade. We saw how the Toronto Maple Leafs ended up looking at that Kasperi-Kapanen trade, and they got a really good prospect, an NHL player in Evan Rodriguez that they could decide whether they want to keep or not, and then the 15th overall pick. So if Kasperi-Kapanen is getting things like that, I know Kapanen's a little bit younger than Palmieri, but they're still both really good players, and if Palmieri agrees to extension, it could be even better for the team that's trading for him. But he could get you a haul. I mean, going back to Toronto, I think that could be a team that could go after him using that 15th overall pick. Or maybe they dangle Travis Dermott. Sam, bringing in a young player, I think he's 23 or 24, to play on the left side of the defense, and somebody you can, he's probably projected more as a second line left defenseman, but maybe you can get some chemistry between him and PK, and you can have a pseudo, first line with him and with Subban and Dermott, and then kind of build a trade around that. There's a lot of things you can do if you make Palmieri available that a lot of the other players on the Devils just don't really give you that flexibility with. But I'm just curious of what your thought. Your thought is the fan, kind of looking at this as through a fan's lenses, what you think of Palmieri being this high on the trade bait board.
Well, that's what it is. It's trade bait board, right? It's hockey talk. It's a weird time right now. We've got playoff hockey and actually September. Jeez. We've got playoff hockey. I don't even remember what month it is, right? We've been all hunker down in our homes. We've been distancing.
Sam, my birthday is this month, and I forgot it was September. I told my wife that it was August today. She's like, "Nope, it's September." Because I was asking her why she was looking for pumpkin stuff. I was like, "It's August. Why are you looking for pumpkin stuff?" And she said, "It's September." And I was like, "Well,
when's your birthday?"
2 weeks. 2 weeks from today.
Mine's Friday.
That's right. You got a big week coming.
Yeah. We're breaking ground on the studio. Last Saturday, Erica Wachter got married to a guy named Sam. I actually sent her a quick message. I said, "Congratulations, Erica! It was wonderful. Oh, by the way, I like your husband's name." That's what I wrote.
I hope you didn't write it in that language, because that was something I never want to hear again. That don't make that voice again. That was hurtful.
Okay. And I think I forgot what her response was. I think she said, "Thank you, LOL," or something like that. Anyway, but Palmieri, let's put it this way. I think everybody is fair game right now. You've got a new interim tag taken off the GM, right? You've got this whole situation with the NHL. I thought I saw some rumor out there, a 60-65 game season is inevitable because of the late start and possibilities, rumors of another bubble situation, bubble city situation. Again, this is all speculation. And
I will tell you that my people say that it is speculation right now. It's just, I think if you ask my opinion, I think it's just a contingency plan is what I would call it.
Yeah, and you know what? Good on the NHL for being ready. This is why it's working right now, because the NHL did their homework. They contacted the right experts. They didn't take any chances. They are very transparent, right? We get these, hey, we did 3,615 tests and all said negative. So on we go. Meow, meow. So that's very good on Gary Bettman.
Mhm.
Also, even Gary Bettman approved that when they hand out the Stanley Cup, they're going to have artificial booing on TV. That's the rumor. So good on the NHL. We get back to feel normal as much as normal can be. But getting back to Kyle Palmieri, you know what? Tom Fitzgerald is going to be listening. He's going to be entertaining offers. Tom Fitzgerald strikes me to be a very smart, yet quiet, yet shrewd GM, where if it helps the overall team, everyone's fair game. It has to be the right trade for the situation that the Devils are in. Now, Kyle Palmieri, being from Jersey, his roots are on the East Coast. His charity, there's a lot of intangibles, but let me tell you, Tom Fitzgerald did trade Blake Coleman. So that tells me he's got the intestinal fortitude to make that call, especially when the interim tag is off.
Yeah. I mean, he has to have some kind of power now, and there was all the rumors that they were going to bring in a president of hockey ops, and that never happened. So I have to imagine that it's, I'm sure that he's running things by Matt Cain and Tyler Dello. I'm sure he's got people to run things by. Obviously, the ownership group has their hands full. They just lost the Mets, and they have the Philadelphia 76ers in a large mess right now. So they have a lot of things on their plate. So I think that Fitzgerald might have some power to make some moves. But at the same time, I don't think, he made this proclamation during the trade deadline about Kyle Palmieri that they weren't going to trade him. Like he felt like he was their best available asset at the trade deadline. After, obviously, when he took over, obviously Taylor Hall was probably their best asset at the beginning of the season that became available, but Kyle Palmieri became their best asset once he took over for Ray Shero, and he wasn't taking anything less than like what he got for Blake Coleman. I think Blake Coleman, the situation there was you found the team that needed him the most and was the perfect fit for him and just had a role, and they're all in on making the Stanley Cup Finals. So they gave up 2 amazing assets for him. But with Kyle Palmieri, the type of teams that are looking for that kind of scoring, like I could see like a Vancouver being a team that made a call on Palmieri and tried to get, him in, but they already didn't have a first-round pick. So that takes them out. And I could have seen a team like Edmonton doing it, but Edmonton didn't have their second, third, and fourth-round pick, so they probably didn't want to give up their first-round pick. I could see a team like it's hard to find those fits when it came to getting Palmieri in the middle of the season because you got to fit him on the right line. He's got a very special skill set. Oh, you're calling timeout.
Did I hear a pun in there? If he is the right fits?
I don't think I did that on purpose, but I think maybe my brain just kind of did that.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. But anyway, there's just there's a lot that goes into a lot more that goes into a Kyle Palmieri trade than goes into a Blake Coleman trade. Because Blake Coleman trade, once you find the fit, a team's going to pay for that because Blake Coleman brings so much to the table between his penalty killing and the fact that he's somebody who could take it the other way and score goals on top of being just a monster defensive player. But when it comes to Palmieri, there's just only certain things that he does. He doesn't play on the penalty kill. He's decent on the power play, but he's not like, one of the best power play players in the game. He probably could be, but his stats just don't turn out that way. But he's good at 5-on-5 scoring. He's one of the best one-timer shots in the game still. So there are teams that are going to be willing to pay for that. But when you put that premium price on it, like the Devils have, they have to try to figure out what that means. And is it literally hit this premium price, or don't trade him at all? And do you try to sign him to an extension? Is he the kind of player that's going to age like a fine wine, or is he going to, age like some of the other older players in the Devils right now who are really weighing down the cap? And does he deserve a big raise? Is he a $6 to $7 million a year guy, or are you evaluating him as a $5.5 million a year guy? And how much does he think he's worth? And how much is it worth to him to stay on the Devils after, he got traded here in what was it, 2015? Sam, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but
I like to
2016?
say something like around that 2016, 2017. They didn't give up much for him.
I think it's a second or third round pick.
Yeah.
I think they gave up the same package for him as they did for Marco Mueller. So,
yep.
Do with that what you will. But he's given us everything. Like, he's been a very good player for us. He signed one extension with us already. That's what some people don't realize, is that, or some people forget that he's already signed an extension with us. So it's not like we traded for him and then he had a chance to leave, or he just never had the chance to leave. Like, he came to us, liked it here, signed the extension. I think he signed the extension after him and Henrique had those 30-goal seasons. Okay. You might have to correct me if I'm wrong, but so the future was bright at the time, but obviously the prospect pool wasn't so great. So it just seemed like the Devils would have to make a lot of moves to make this team a winner, and they decided to go the other way. They decided to start over. So he's been dealing with this turmoil of a team that's missing the playoffs most years. So how much does he want to still stick around? It is obviously, he's from New Jersey, but it's not like he grew up a Devils fan. He didn't. But it is nice to be near a family. So there's a million factors into why the Devils would or would not look into a Kyle Palmieri trade. The fact of the matter is that other teams want him. And maybe Fitzgerald got close to a deal, but didn't pull the trigger, and maybe that team is still interested. Maybe it is in Edmonton. Maybe he called Edmonton and said, I want Philip Broberg. I need a defenseman. And they said no at the time. But with Oscar Klefbom and Ethan Bear really stepping up for them, maybe now they feel like that they can afford to lose Philip Broberg. The once you see your team in the playoffs, and once your team loses in the playoffs, your priorities change. And you realize that maybe you didn't have the team on the ice that you thought you did. Or maybe that, you thought at one time that Kyle Palmieri was the missing piece, but you thought you'd be fine without him. You ended up not being fine without him. Now you have to get that missing piece again, especially if you're a team like Edmonton, who has Connor McDavid to make happy and has these young years of Leon Draisaitl that they're wasting. Obviously, they both are very well-paid players, but these two players are well into their prime and both Hart Trophy candidates year in, year out, and they can't get out of the first round. Sometimes they can't make the playoffs. And, a team like that is the team that needs to pay for Kyle Palmieri. So that's how I feel about where the Devils should be. I think that the Devils should listen to all offers, but I do think that they should have a very high price on Palmieri, and they shouldn't take anything less than the high price. I think they should be also actively seeing what Palmieri wants in an extension. Does he want 6 years? Because that would scare me. Is he willing to take 3 years? Because I would probably sign up for that right now. And I think that, and I also question why Palmieri's name is out there and Gusev's is not. But I think I think when they look at the long-term aspects of this team, I think that they think Gusev is going to be a dollar-for-dollar asset. I think they think Gusev might be a little bit better in the long run. But I also don't think that means anything. They think anything less of Palmieri. I just think that they see his game falling off a little bit more because he's more of a sniper scorer, and Gusev he doesn't have the wear and tear of the NHL on him, and there's just a lot of factors in that. But because at first I was curious of why Gusev's name isn't out there, but Palmieri's name is all over the place. But I think that's kind of their thought process, and I think I kind of expect a Gusev extension more than I expect a Palmieri extension this offseason.
Yeah, I also want to see some kind of continuity and consistency. The team's been through so much. Okay, with the trade of Taylor Hall, Blake Coleman, championship teams. If you look at the 1995 Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, you remember Bruce Driver, John McLean, all these Ken Danico were there in the lean years. They were the constants. A lot of players came and went when they first came to New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Even Kirk Muller, Peter Stastny, Brendan Shanahan, Sean Burke, but there were constants. So right now, the only constant right now on the team is Travis Zajac, and his career is, starting to wind down soon. Palmieri is a lot younger. Is younger than Zajac. Maybe it's somebody that you eat that kind of salary where the intangibles of him being a Jersey guy, a leader in the locker room, taking some of that pressure off of Nico Hischier, because I believe he will be the eventual captain. Or would he? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. But I know that Facebook Live has a lot of questions going on. One of them I saw in here is probably Eric Leppert writes, thoughts on offering our 2 late first rounders to Ottawa to see if we can move up. I guess changing gears. Did you see that interview that Tom Fitzgerald did? I forgot who it was with.
I think it was
trading a first rounder.
I thought I had it, but now I'm second guessing myself. But
Yeah,
was it Mike Morial?
You know what? I don't remember. I thought it was NJ.com. I could be wrong.
Well, that's what I thought too, but it was NJ.com. Who was it with NJ.com?
Randy Miller?
Randy Miller did do it. Okay. I apologize to Randy Miller. Randy Miller's a nice guy. I've spoken to Randy Miller through email. Just kind of, he's a guy that I've been talking to, trying to get him on the podcast, but he's currently doing double duty for NG.com, doing Yankees and Devils. So he's a busy guy. But maybe, we were talking about maybe once the Yankee season ends, we'll get him on the Let's Go Devils podcast, try to get his aspirations for this team moving forward. But yeah, no, we asked him about trading a first-round pick. He said he's willing to do it. But the question at hand was, there's zero chance that the Ottawa Senators are trading the 3 or the 5, and it not including the 7th overall pick. I think if the Devils offer them 7 and 18, they might consider a move up to 5. But that's not really worth it to me. I feel like the talent there is equally the upside is equal among the players between 4 and 8. So I think that making a move up, if you're not going for 3 and you're not trying to just go all in on Byfield, if they would take a 7, if we gave them 7 and 18 and they would let us move up to 3, I would do that, but not for 5. And I love Byfield. I think Byfield's going to be an amazing player, and I understand that we have centers for days, but if we were able to kind of change the way, and I've said this before on here, if we could change the way that we run the organization and how we play on the ice, and we play a different kind of game where we have just centers on centers, and it's just always getting the puck to the open man and then making those shots. I think if you do center, sniper, center, sniper, center, sniper for the first 3 lines, because you can have, let's say you have Nico and Jack together on the first line. We talk about them having to split lines, but if you have Nico and Jack together on the first line, then you put, Byfield and Zacha together on the second line, and you put, Zajac with, you'd have to have somebody like Coleman again. I off the top of my head, I can't think of who they might put there, but if you could kind of change the philosophy of your team and you change that way, Byfield, he could be as good as Lafreniere. He could be. He has that kind of upside. He's a year younger almost. He's almost a full year younger than Lafreniere. He's one of the youngest players in this draft, and he's been using a stick that's too short. Like, Sam, have you ever played hockey? Imagine if you were using a stick that's too short. You're bent over all the time, and you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. So he finally, had somebody tell him, I guess he liked the smaller stick, but it was putting him at a disadvantage, and I guess he just didn't understand it or whatever. I don't know what the actual situation for that is, but the point is that to answer the question, the Devils would need to add 7 into any one of their picks with Ottawa and give up one of the other first-round picks, and that's not worth it for 5. I think it's worth it for 3, and I also don't think they do it for 3. I think they need Byfield in a desperate way, and I think that they're going to end up. I personally think they're going to end up with. I think they're going to end up with Byfield and Drysdale, and I think that they're going to come out as the big winners of the draft because that's a haul. But I also think they could. I mean, they could offer the Rangers 3 and 5 for number 1 overall. And that would make me sad because I don't need the Rangers getting 2 more big assets. I only want to root for one player to bust on the Rangers.
For a second there, I forgot that the Rangers were picking first overall.
I know. I probably ruined a lot of lives.
You know what? I try not to focus on the Rangers right now. They're just, look, 3 first-round draft picks in a deep draft. We can only hope and dream what that may turn out to be, right? I believe it's Ottawa that has 3 as well.
Yeah, Ottawa has one in the 20s, right? Late 20s.
Yeah. So, that's. I need a calculator. Between 2 teams, they've got 6 out of 31 picks, right?
Yeah, I mean that would be 20% if it was 30, so it's like 19, 18, 5, something like that.
It should be very interesting to see how Ottawa turns out and how New Jersey turns out. Now there's been trade proposals. Like I see some wild trade proposals. Hey, some of these trolls on the internet are like, "Hey, would you trade 3 first rounders of this year's draft for Connor McDavid?"
Sure,
that's not gonna happen.
But
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You know what? I think right now, this is just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Because the world is so screwed up right now with COVID and everything going on, you know what? I think this is the time to dig in and keep drafting. Just keep drafting. I mean, three picks. And I've said this on previous podcasts. I mean, could you imagine having 3 first-round picks in the 2003 draft? What you can do with them? With those picks,
I mean, imagine if they. So I'll give you. Imagine if the Devils had 3 first-round picks in the 2015 NFL draft. That was the one where they mistakenly took Pavel Zacha. But say they had 17, 18, and 20. They'd come out with Ivan Provorov, Thomas Chabot, and Joel Eckerson-Ek. And if they didn't want to take Eckerson-Ek, Brock Besser was on the board, and Travis Konechny was on the board. And Ilya Samsonov was on the board. The really good goalie for the Capitals. They all got taken just a couple picks after that. So, there's in drafts like this that look this stacked. You can come out with a franchise-changing haul. And the Devils have that chance, and I don't know what trade of a first-round pick is going to make the Devils better enough that I'm going to be like, cool, I'm willing to give up the upside of this first-round pick in order to get that player. And like when David Holliday, who's a frequent listener of the Let's Go Devils podcast, now a writer for Pucks and Pitchforks made a couple proposals for Patrick Laine over the weekend, and none of them had the 7th overall pick. And I don't think that I would give up the 7th overall pick for Patrick Laine. Patrick Laine he has some flaws in his game, and I don't think that you add Patrick Laine to this roster and the Devils are a playoff team. So I don't think you give up that pick when it's not going to change your roster in that dramatic of a way in this draft. I would absolutely give up one of the other 2 first-round picks because I do think that his upside is, much higher than what you're going to get at 18 or 20. But you can get a guy who's franchise changing at 7 this year, and that's just rare. That's not something that happens very often.
Well, I read some article this past week. What was that article? Something about Nico's draft that the other 4 players, right now, like no, or was it a tweet? I read some tweet or some article somewhere about that draft where Nico was picked first overall, just beat out Nolan Patrick, but where Cale Makar is right now, and the guy in Vancouver, his name is not coming to me right now. But, is it Elias Peterson?
Oh no, Elias Pettersson. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. I was a year ahead on Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. So,
here's the thing.
That could honestly happen in this year's draft where we think we have the first overall, but hey, 2, 3, 4, and 5 look pretty good, and exception of Nolan Patrick, but you never know. He may be a late bloomer.
I like Elias Pettersson, and Cale Makar is a good player, but the only player that I'm trading Nico Hischier for in that draft is Miro Heiskanen. I think Miro Heiskanen is going to be a Norris-level defenseman for 15 years. I think he's going to be one of the best in the game. I think he reminds me a lot. He's got a lot of Seth Jones in him. He's got a lot. He's really, 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 really good. Cale Makar is a very good offensive defenseman, and he does a lot of things right, but he needed 3 years in college for a reason. And when it comes to Elias Pettersson, I think that Pettersson is better right now. He is better. He's a better player right now, but I think that what Nico Hischier is trying to become takes longer to get to your prime. I think Elias Pettersson, the kind of player that he is becoming, is faster to get to your ceiling. So I'd rather wait for Hischier and see that he becomes a Patrice Bergeron. Sorry, you said Nolan Patrick. It threw me up. Patrice Bergeron type player, and wait for that. Then get the Pettersson right now, because you got to remember that if we took Elias Pettersson first overall, he's still going to juniors that one season, and we don't make the playoffs in 2018. And I know that we spent a lot of draft capital to make the playoffs that year, and some people say that it wasn't worth it, but I think it was absolutely worth it, because right now you'd be talking about an 8-year playoff drought if it wasn't for that year. You wouldn't have the fun that was that Taylor Hall MVP season. And say what you will, but if you think there was vitriol in the Devils fan base now, imagine if after all this time we went all in on it after 7 years of missing the playoffs, and it all fell apart in an epic way like this. Just think about that. And, I think that playoff run meant something, even though it was only 5 games. But we went toe-to-toe with Tampa that year, and they were a really good Tampa team. And, things didn't work out because, honestly, it had a lot to do with the goalie situation. We went with Keith Kincaid and Corey Schneider another year, and we shouldn't have. But there was really no other way to do it, because Keith Kincaid was coming off just a monster season, and we had him already signed for another year. And Corey Schneider, you're stuck in that $6 million a year contract, and buying him out was an albatross back then. And you'd be paying for it for 6 more years if you bought him out then. So I get it. I get that why they had to go into the next season with the same goalie situation, but they I went on a tangent. I went off. But the point is that the reason why I'm picking Heischer over Pedersen is I think that over the long haul, over the next 15 years, I think what Heischer is going to bring to the table is going to be more rare. Rarer? I don't know what the word is. Is it more rare? I think it's more rare than what Pedersen's going to bring. I think there's going to be 10 players that could do what Pedersen could become when he hits the ceiling. I think 5 players are going to be able to do what he does. Like how many Patrice Bergerons are out there, Sam?
Not
3
many.
or 4 in the league.
That's a rare breed. That's a rare breed.
So getting that kind of player is just so important. But again, I would trade him 1-for-1 right now for Miro Heiskanen because I think that that's even rarer to get a top defenseman that is that good already and is only going to get better. He's the only player that I even consider. Cale Makar, I wouldn't consider. I would not. The phone call would end if you asked for Nico Hischier in a Cale Makar trade, because I just don't. I don't think what Cale Makar does is as rare as what Nico Hischier could become.
Well, and Nico Hischier is on his way to maybe being a very, very, very good and effective two-way player and captain, the New Jersey Devils with that leadership. Now, switching gears, and I'm going to pose this question in the Facebook group, and I'm just going to hit the enter button now. Are you rooting for Andy Green or Blake Coleman in this year's playoffs? I'm going to pin that question. We want to hear from you. We want to get your comments, your questions on the Facebook Live, Twitter Periscope, YouTube Live, and Twitch. Who are you rooting for, Nick?
Oh, I'm all in on the fish sticks. I want the Isles to win, but that's more because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's that saying. I absolutely, positively do not want the Philadelphia Flyers to move on. That's just full stop. Need it to end. I need their season to end. Sorry, Flyers fans. We don't have any Flyers fans that listen to us. They're not. We have a couple Rangers fans that listen to us, but no Flyers fans. They're not silly enough to do that. But yeah, full stop. I want the Rangers season to end, and then after that, I'll probably. Well, I got money on the Lightning, so I am going to root for the Lightning. I made a bet while I was, in New Jersey. I made a bet on the Lightning to win it all while I was there, very early in the season, and I got good odds on it. So I'm going to root for the Lightning overall. So I am going to root for Blake Coleman to lift Lord Stanley's Cup. But again, it's hard to hate Coleman. I know a lot of people hate the Lightning because of kind of how they acted in that series that we had with them, and kind of how we've just had chippy games with them. Kucherov has been chippy, and he had that headshot on Sami Vatanen that changed that series. And Victor Hedman had the low blow to Nico Hischier in that series. And Miles Wood exploded a guy's face mask. Do you remember that game? I think we talked about that was the Eddie Lack game when Miles Wood punched somebody so hard that his face mask exploded in his face and he was bleeding all over the place. Yep. So these two teams are not, they have bad blood, but at the same time, seeing Blake Coleman succeed. Did you see his goal the other night where he Supermaned? He literally dove and he poked it with the stick. When you see that, it makes me sad because he doesn't do that for us anymore. But for him to get the chance to do that when it matters most, kind of makes it worth it. And also, I think Nolan Foote's going to be a great player, so that also makes it worth it. But having Blake Coleman get this opportunity and just be able to excel when the lights are shining the brightest, and have the announcers talk about how important that line. But it was him, Barclay Goodrow, and I can't remember the third person on that line. But they start games for the Lightning. They set the tone. They're that kind of line, and that was what he was here. So seeing that does put a smile on my face. So I am rooting for the Lightning, partially because of Blake Coleman, but mostly because I like money.
Well, I like money too. Let's put it this way, but I like trolling. I like competition. I'm going to go with what Michael Hayes says in the Facebook Live, Andy and Lou, because what's attached to Andy Green and his career is Lou Lamoriello. Now, think about this, Devils fans. And I know it's painful as I'm talking to you on social media because we are live right now. Just think and Devils management's going to hate me when I say this.
Oh boy.
You got the Rangers with the first overall pick, right? Thank goodness you have 3 first rounders. The Flyers, we all made fun of that Kevin Hayes signing. I don't think it's that bad right now. And the Flyers are in the playoffs. If the Islanders win the Stanley Cup, kudos to Andy Green. But the guy that you let go to Toronto, Lou Lamoriello, jettisoned to Toronto, fixed that organization by giving it structure for the first time since 1967. Great hire by Brendan Shanahan. Then he jettisons down to Long Island, reinvents the wheel, new arena, new excitement. They lose John Tavares to the enemy. Toronto, you remember the fans were like, John, why? Why? You could have just told us. And they booed him mercifully. But if the Islanders win the Stanley Cup, Devils management, they better hope that Tom Fitzgerald gets them on the right track sooner rather than later, because this trust the process crap is going out the window. You're telling me that, I mean, let's be honest here. They probably thought Lou was kind of washed up and he left. But you knew that Lou Lamoriello is a competitive guy. We're his disciples as fans. We've watched Lou. He does everything the right way. Yeah, he's got his quirks, right? Everyone's got quirks. But if he wins the Stanley Cup with the Islanders across the river, are you kidding me? You better not call me for more tickets next year. You better bring home a Stanley Cup with that ticket package, because I'll be really, really mad. I don't care about
we're
the
not.
market.
Are we going to turn into the Let's Go Islanders podcast? What's happening here?
No. We're not. I view the Island. Look, I hate the Rangers. I hate the Flyers. The Islanders is kind of like our cousins. Because it's our cousins across the river, right? You know, they're the black sheep of the family, but they're still family. Yeah. You know, like, honestly, if you watch an Islanders Rangers game, who are you rooting for to win?
Oh, the Islanders every single time.
Yeah. But if the Flyers and Rangers are playing, who do you root to win? You hope they both lose. That's how I root.
I hope acts of God win.
Yeah, exactly. No,
I would never hope for that, but you know what I mean. I hope that
it's just jokes.
I hope the team that's higher in the standings loses, or the team that needs the win more loses. How about that? Yeah. You know, if the Rangers are on the cusp, I hope they lose, or if the Flyers are higher in the standings, I hope they lose. It's rooting for the bigger disappointment.
Yeah. Like I root for that miraculous both team loses. Like, okay, the Rangers did win, but this coach forged a scorecard wrong and they declared a forfeiture. So even though they did win, they really did lose, on record. Anyway.
I just hope that Stephen A. Smith is running hockey for a night and the Flyers and the Rangers tie.
Yeah.
Just to ruin people's days.
Yeah. So, I'm seeing Craig Best injuries. No, we don't root for injuries, if that's what you mean. Oh Omar thinks that I think Hall will be back. Well, speaking of Taylor Hall, I think I read somewhere on Twitter that Arizona Coyotes, who was penalized by the NHL, has another go at it with Taylor Hall for re-signing. I think they're wasting their time, but you know what? They've got rights right now, so why not?
I mean, here's the thing: is that we know that Hall's agent leaks. I mean, we saw it. There's no way that this much information came out before that trade happened without the agent having something to do with it. I'm sorry. Probably will hurt my chances of getting Darren Ferris on this podcast in the future, Sam, but it's just putting two and two together. So I think that he's leaking this himself to make it sound like, oh, this team really wants us here, but we're deciding free agency is the way to go. Because it doesn't make sense for Arizona to go after Taylor Hall. It doesn't. Like, they just lost. They're missing their first and so they're missing their first round pick, their second round pick this year. They're missing their first round pick and at least their third round pick next year. But if they sign Taylor Hall, that makes it missing a first and a second next year. So they're going to give up a better pick, and then Taylor Hall is going to sign up for a team that's trying to get a new GM, figure out the coach with Rick Tocchet, possibly trade their best defenseman in Oliver Ekman-Larsson. No idea what they're going to do with Phil Kessel. No idea what they're going to do with some of their other, like Derek Stefan and some of their other veterans. Their young players are, their prospect pool reminds me a lot of the Devils' prospect pool, as it's a lot of players that could be really good, but if you played them in the NHL right now, I'd be really worried. So, I think it's honestly more likely that the Devils sign him than the Coyotes sign him, and I think the chance the Devils sign him is at about 5% now. I thought it was about 20% before, because I thought they would legitimately make a shot, a run at him. But the team is too different now, and I just don't think he's the right fit for what they want to do. I think they need somebody who is as good as him, but on a younger timeline. Now I feel like they're willing to spend that price to get that, like the price of assets instead of the price of just salary cap space. So I don't think that Taylor Hall is coming back anymore. I know I've said this on this podcast before that I thought that he might. I thought the chances were good, but I've got it down to about 5%, and that's probably being generous, Sam, because it's just the fit just isn't there, and with the flat cap, I think he's had to change his priorities a little bit, and that's kind of my hope was that he wouldn't change his priorities. He'd want to get paid, and he'd want to be on a winning team, and he'd see the future of the Devils is a winning team, and the Devils would be able to pay him the most. But it seems like money, he just kind of got that out of his head with the COVID and with the flat cap. So I think like Colorado is going to be very enticing to him. I think Calgary is going to be extremely enticing to him. I think he can even get talked into going to Nashville, but I don't think Nashville has the money to make it work. He could even go to something weird. Like he could go to Columbus or something weird. I feel like Taylor Hall is going to go to a weird team. I know a lot of people are saying, I just said Colorado and Calgary, and that's because I'd heard a lot of people say that, but I just feel like it's going to be a weird team like a Columbus or I have to look at who has money, honestly. But it could be, what if Tampa made some room and Tampa signed him for 1 year? What if he went on Tampa? Imagine that team. If he's like, I'll take $3.5 million for 1 year, go for my cup year, and all they have to do is trade freaking Alex Killorn, and then they can afford Taylor Hall. Like, just imagine.
Could you imagine? Again, I haven't seen the cap situation. Could you imagine if Taylor Hall signs with the Islanders?
I just don't think he's a Lou Lamoriello type player. Lou doesn't venture into the free agent waters, and I don't think Lou wants a Ray Shero, a former Ray Shero pickup. I don't think that's what Lou is a prideful guy. Say what you want, but Lou has made bad moves in order, because of ego. And, 9 times out of 10, he makes the right move. But there's that 1 out of 10 that he's skipped moves or, we talked about last week with David, when David Leibowitz was on about how Lou was going to he told Patrick Elias, I don't have the money for you. Go check out the market. And he got lucky. Patrick was like, well, this is what they offer me in the market. This is, he could have just signed that deal with the Rangers. And then you lose your best player to, because I think it's a little bit of an ego thing for Lou. And I don't think that his ego would let him sign Taylor Hall, a player that is probably Ray Sherrow's best move.
Well, just so you're aware, I'm going to try something new because we were on that webinar before. I like to do a station identification. I haven't done that in a while.
Okay.
You're listening to the State of the Fan Address here, live on the Let's Go Devils Podcast Network with Nick Villano and Sam Wu. Was that pretty good? Because I was on that webinar. If we actually do that thing, they said that we're going to be on a radio format. And I'm thinking, radio format? Oh, we're
so
going to have to
what does that mean? Does that mean like from 8 to 9 it's New York Islanders talk, and from 9 to 10 it's Rangers talk? Like what slot are they going to give us?
I have no idea.
I don't know if they're going to give us our 8:30 to 10 o'clock slot, Sam. I
don't think they can handle us because we are live. We're not fake live. We're live.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hand off a pre-recorded live and say it's live.
No, I don't think that's a smart move.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is look, if you want to look, I'm going to put this. We are literally live. You see that? You see, you can't do that and talk to your Facebook Live. Ray Leo, though, what about Subban a first and eating half of the salary to Toronto for Nylander? See, I read that live.
I've already said that I don't think that they should trade Subban. I think it's a bad look to trade Subban right now.
Yeah.
That is the move over trading Kyle Palmieri. Trading PK Subban is the move that shows that you are giving up completely on what you tried to do last season. And I don't think that's a good look for free agents. I don't think that's a good look for the guys in the locker room, unless there's something we don't know about Subban, which I don't think there is. Yeah. I think he generally gets along with a lot of people, and think about it, how often he's front and center at NHL events. And to have a New Jersey Devils player front and center that often does mean something. I know it doesn't mean something to people who are already Devils fans, but it does mean something for the Fairweather fan and the fan that has not picked a team yet. So I absolutely think that the Devils should keep Subban.
Yeah, well, switching gears. Let's talk about the goalie position.
It's in a weird situation.
The question is, or do you want to read the question? I'm pulling a beer baron right now. I'm actually reading off all your notes.
I mean, so basically, Vinny kind of dove into this, and we've dived into this before, but Vinny really jumped into seeing who's available, who the Devils could really go after in the free agency and on the trade market. And Sam, so you know how in the NFL this year, like there was just a ton of quarterbacks available.
Yep.
That's basically the goalie position this year. Not only is there free agents galore, but there's 3 or 4 really good ones that you can get in trade. So it leaves us to Corey Schneider. Corey Schneider is he hasn't been good. And I know we had that podcast with Chico a couple months ago, and Chico, was it Chico or was it Kanji? I don't remember. I think maybe it was Kanji. Kanji was talking about how he was excited to see how Schneider ended the season because he was playing really well down those last 4 games.
Yeah,
and he was 2-1-1. His save percentage was good. His goals against average was good. He was making the side-to-side saves that he wasn't making. And I wasn't agreeing with him at that point. But the more I think about where the Devils are and the moves that they can make, buying him out makes the Devils pay for him for 4 years, and would cost them $2 million a year for 4 years. And obviously, when I was talking about this, I didn't know what the situation was going to be with the cap. I didn't know if it was going to be flat. I didn't know if they were going to take a major hit for 1 year for relief for the next couple of years. I just honestly did not know what the situation entailed. So that kind of went into my thought process. Now that I know it's a flat cap for multiple years, possibly, that makes me feel like maybe keeping him for the next 2 years might be the right move. But I look at the backup situations out there. The Jacob Markstrom's probably not getting re-signed. Braden Holtby's definitely not getting re-signed unless the Ilya Samsonov injury is much worse than we thought. But I still think that they're going to let Holtby walk. Robin Lehner is obviously killing it for Vegas right now. I think he's actually pricing himself out. Ray Leo says I can see them making a move for Lehner. I think he's pricing himself out of the Devils' contention right now. I think he's going to be making a lot of money this offseason. Anton Hudobin is available. Thomas Rice is available. A lot of backup options and a lot of split start options. And then you look at the trade market. Matt Murray is available. Absolutely. Frederick Anderson's available. Absolutely. If the rumor about Frederick Anderson and the Carolina Hurricanes is true, that means Peter Mrazek's available. There's a couple other names that I'm not. Georgiev is probably available in New York, unless they make Henrik Lundqvist available in New York. And they could just straight up buy out Henrik Lundqvist. I think he would go back to Sweden if that happens. But they could buy him out and he could take another shot in the NHL. And he could not want to move and he could come to the Devils. There's just a lot of names. Oh, Marc-Andre Fleury is out there. He's probably going to get traded if the Golden Knights decide to re-sign Robin Lehner. There's just a lot of options out there. So I think that the Devils have a decision to make here because Corey Schneider is worse than probably every single person I just named. The way he played last season is worse than every single person I just named, and I named about 15 names. But when Schneider's at his best, if he plays I'm not even asking him for when he was in Vezina consideration a couple years ago. I'm talking about if he's able to play like he played in the 2018 playoffs and like he played for a stretch at the end of not this past season, but the season before. If he could just play like an average goalie, I think you're fine just keeping that contract and dealing with it. The problem is if you have to send him to the AHL again and, then you have to trade a 7th round pick for a below average goalie. And, no offense to Bing, but, that's what he was. He was not, the average goalie was better than him. And then you're stuck if Schneider's ready to come back and you got to figure out whether you're going to send that person you just sent a 7th round pick for and put him through waivers. It just puts them in a bad situation, Sam. And, with so many options available that are actually legitimate, it makes me wonder if they should make a move. What do you think? What do you think the Devils should do with Corey Schneider?
This is what I think, all right? I've been a big proponent of keeping all 3 first-round draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always said, get a sniper, get a defenseman, and get a goalie. If that Russian goalie, the top prospect, is still available, you grab him. You grab him.
7?
Not a 7. If he happens to be available, and that's a big happens to be, all right?
Mm.
But if he happens to be available, this is what you do. Or you maybe trade up a little bit to get him. Because now you've got Mac Black, you've got Schneider, and I forgot the goalie's name. Sorry.
Gil Sen. You're talking about the AHL goalie?
No, I'm talking about the Russian goalie.
Oh, Yaroslav Askarov.
Yeah, that's it. So
Gilson, not a bad goalie, by the way. He's a little older, but
I will tell you, there is an expansion draft. What you could do is leave Schneider open and basically beg with a side deal with Seattle, Ron Francis, have Fitzgerald and Francis sit in a room, be like, look, I'll add in the second rounder or third rounder. Just take him.
So what the Devils could do.
And then think about Schneider in Seattle against his former team, which would be our automatic rival, the Vancouver Canucks. Think about that scenario. And he resurrects his career over there.
So what I think the Devils would actually do in that situation, because the Devils are going to have a lot of players who aren't eligible for that draft because they aren't going to have enough games played. They're going to not have enough NHL years under them to be eligible for that draft. But I bet you the Devils go to them and say, here's 2 NHL-ready prospects for you to take Corey Schneider. You know, I'm not talking about Ty Smith or even Riley Walsh. I'm talking about, like, you know, I don't want to name names but I'm saying, like, people who are like, Sam, we're about to be in a situation where the Devils have 8 or 9 NHL ready prospects and nowhere to put them.
Yeah.
So if you send Vegas 2 of them, or not, I'm sorry, not Vegas, Seattle, if you send Seattle 2 of them in order for them to take Schneider, then you don't have to worry about them coming after your guys. It doesn't really matter who you protect. And then you kind of get out of that. Get out of that last $6 million a year contract. And I think they'd actually probably discuss buying him out because the buyout's not bad in that last year. Mm-hmm. But even if they decide to keep him for a veteran presence, I don't know. Vegas had the pick of the litter when it came to goalies, and they went with Marc-Andre Fleury. And it ended up being the smart move. But I don't know what goalies are going to be made available. You know, like the one that I would really like to look at, and he put, and I thought that this was going to be the case anyway, but he put himself in an interesting situation in Boston. Is Tuukka Rask? Is Tuukka Rask going to make him? Is Boston going to make Tuukka Rask available? And they just resigned Halak, so you know they obviously don't want to lose him. But I think Halak would be a name that Seattle would absolutely like to bring into the building. That's a really good backup to bring in, and there's just a lot of interesting things with goalies right now. The goalie position should be dominating the headlines, and not a lot of people are talking about it. It really does remind me of how the quarterbacks went in the NFL. Like, there's just so much that can happen in goalies this offseason, and we're kind of just letting it fall into place. And Michael High says Holtz. I don't know what that signal means. Holtz to Askarov. Obviously, the Devils should take Holtz over Askarov. I think we're talking about with the 18th pick, right? Is that what you're talking about, Sam? Or maybe moving up a little bit, but you're talking about middle of the round.
Yeah, middle of the round.
If Carolina takes on Frederick Anderson, they could still go after Askarov, but it's less likely. But then when you look at it, I don't know if there's another team that's likely to take Askarov. Maybe Toronto. Toronto might be a team that's going after him, but I don't think they're going to have that pick. I don't think they're going to own the pick by the time the drafts comes. I think they're trading that pick for NHL roster help. And there's just so much. There's so much that's going to happen with the goalies. Like, I think there could be 10 new starting goalies this season. If you count like Thatcher Demko taking over, if you count like Samsonov taking over, Igor Shesterkin taking over, the guy on the Islanders might have a new goalie next year. That'd be weird. Yeah. Semyon Varlamov takes you to the conference finals likely, and then you go with I can't think of his name. I got 3 Russian names in a row. You gotta give me some credit here. I don't know the last guy. I can't remember the Islanders goalie off the top of my head, but goalie is a very interesting position, and the Devils are lucky because Blackwood looks legit. He looks like the starter, and I think you give him at least 55 games next year. Depending on what COVID does to the schedule, I know you brought that up earlier, but if it's an 82-game season, you give 55 to Blackwood, and then if you can get 30 out of a backup and then maybe 7 because of injury or whatever, situations happen with goalies. I need to ask myself if Corey can give me 30 games. Do you think Corey can still do 30 games, or do you think that that's too much to ask at this point?
That's a good question. But is he going to have an opportunity to get into 30 games if it is a shortened season next year?
If it's a short season, then you might only need 15 on a Schneider, and then I think that it's a different conversation.
Yeah, but do you pay that much? Do they pay prorated? I have no idea, but it's a good question. I don't know. You know what? Like I said, I would keep Schneider in for next year. I like that continuity and stability. I think Mac Black could benefit one more year with Corey Schneider as his teammate. And Schneider's been nothing but class act this entire time. I mean, there's something to be said. If he has Hall of Fame, esque credentials in terms of what he has done so far, being a class act is one of them. Because he has not been a pain in the butt. No. He has not. He's been trying to be a competitor. He never pointed fingers to anybody. He always put it upon himself. Sometimes I felt bad being overcritical because, look, you only look at Martin Brewer, what he did in his career. He had the hardest. Think about being traded in New Jersey. Right? All of us fans were sitting in a Prudential Center like, yeah, we're finally going to be picking Bettman. You stink. And then Bettman's like, you may want to hear this one.
I think you're going to want to hear this.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly. And everyone's like, whoa. Because I
don't even think it was our pick. I think it was a pick or two before us. I might be wrong.
No.
It was our pick?
It was. Yeah, I was there.
Okay.
I actually had press credentials that day, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, whoa! And then I'm looking down at the floor and I'm like, how the heck is my friend on the floor? He literally just walked in. Security didn't even stop him. Here I am with a real press credential, and I see my friend walking on the floor. How did you get in there? But anyway.
Things like that are never going to happen again. We're going to live. But anyway, we don't have to get into that. But that does kind of make me sad, Sam. And I know we're coming to the end here, but it does make me sad because we had big plans for the draft this year. We had plans to go and try to get credentialed and do live podcasts from the floor.
We were going international. We were going to go through that border, Nick, right? And I already had our budget plan in case, money became an issue of funding this trip. We were going to stay in Plattsburgh. And then just hightail it through the border, tell them where we're going, we're sightseeing, whatever. You go there, and we're going to have a blast at the Bell Center. We had plans, but you know what? Yep. Obviously, they went kaput.
They went by the wayside. It's fine. It is what it is.
Things happen for a reason, but I think we should start winding down by saying last month something happened at Pucks and Pitchforks. I would like to hear it from you, the editor-in-chief. What happened at Pucks and Pitchforks blog the month of August?
So the Pucks and Pitchforks blog broke a massive record. We broke our total views record for the month of August, just forever. We had more views last month than Pucks and Pitchforks has ever had. We had 448,000 people visit the site last month. we almost had almost 500,000 people. So I want to thank all my writers. I want to thank all of the fans, especially just coming, and a lot of those people are coming every day and seeing our new content. And I know you appreciate the fact that, despite the fact that we're in quarantine, and despite the fact that there's no real Devils news and nothing really happening, that you appreciate that we're coming up with content, coming up with conversation pieces, and that's all we are. We're just trying to keep the conversation going. That's what we do on the podcast. That's what we do on the blog. But I wanted to thank all the New Jersey Devils fans out there who have been loyal to us at Pucks and Pitchforks and have grown us into this. I mean, it's really just become a powerhouse. And, I'm not going to try to overstate what we are, and I'm not trying to call us a newspaper or say we're journalists or anything, but we are conversation starters. And I think you guys take us for what we are, and you appreciate us for that. And during a time when, because our viewership went way, way, way down when this all started, because I think a lot of people were just on different schedules, figuring out the work from home situation, and there was a lot of people who were just not feeling up for anything. Sports were gone, all their distractions were gone. We all had to live with this new, whatever they call it, the new normal or whatever it is. And a lot of people were just getting used to just kind of living this way. And I think now people are kind of finding their happiness again and going back to the places that make them feel good. And the fact that we're one of those places and you've come back in droves makes me, it just definitely, it helps me get through the pandemic as well. And it drives me to give you more content and more content. And Pucks and Pitchforks is not going to slow down. We're not like other superstars where we rest on our laurels when we hit records. We're going to shoot for half a million this month, and we're going to try to get more viewers. We're going to try to go out to all the Devils fans and all the people who've called us garbage or called us whatever bad name that you want to call us. I hope you come back and start reading. We're an equal opportunity website that allows everybody to get their voice be heard, and we try to let everybody have, get their opinion out there. And I told you, David Holliday is a person who heard about the website on this. He joined last week, and he's going to make some money this month, Sam. He hit the money with that Patrick Laine piece. I gotta calculate it all out. So I don't want to say, and I don't want to give his business out. He might have some people. He might owe some people some stuff. So I don't want to say how much it is, but he's like that. His first month in, he's a moneymaker. And I told you guys last week, Fansided has made it a point to pay every single writer. So on top of that, you also get money from me if you hit certain thresholds. Basically, it's just if you get over 10,000 views, you get to get paid double what other Fansided writers get. So, it's a good deal if you ask me. I think that we're taking care of our writers over at Fansided at Pucks and Pitchforks, and you can see it that our writers are writing a lot. We're getting a lot of different types of opinions. David Leibowitz is so unlike me as a writer, who is so unlike Vinny Parisi, who's so unlike, David's just a different writer who's brand new, and he's getting his feet wet, getting his chops, and and he's different from Rob DeLuca, who's different from Charlie Borges. They're just all, Mike Lucci, and they're all just very, 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 very different. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. We just have a lot of people writing right now, and I end up losing track, and I'm sorry if I missed you. But I just want to thank all of my writers. I want to thank all the fans. I want to thank everybody, because it was a proud moment when I just kept seeing the numbers go up, kept seeing, 250 people concurring on the website, and everybody was having a good time. We were talking, whether you agree with us or not. And that's what I always liked, is that everybody, even when you disagreed with us, you're like, I don't think that this would happen. I think it would happen this way. Or, that's a little ambitious. It was this. Instead of, most of the people on the internet are mean, Sam. I don't know if you know this. There's mean people on the internet. But over at Pucks and Pitchforks, it's just a lot of conversations. Like everybody's talking, everybody's talking it out. So it's a lot of fun, and it's hockey. Hockey's supposed to be fun, and I think that we do a good job of making it that way.
Well, yeah, and I'm also going to make an offer there to the writer, that gets 1 trillion unique visitors to the Pucks and Pitchforks site. We'll get a ride on the private jet. The private jet. I think my bet's on Vinny Parisi getting 1 trillion unique visitors to the Pucks and Pitchforks blog, pucksandpitchforks.com. Also, here at the Let's Go Devils podcast, when COVID hit, our numbers dropped too. A lot of our listeners that don't see the live feed download the podcast. We're probably commuters in New York City. I think 66% of our Monday podcast downloads were in New York. That went away. Raleigh, North Carolina at one point was our number one demographic during the pause. But as NHL came back, you guys came back, and equally the last month and a half, 2 months, Nick, some of our numbers were better than our pre-COVID numbers in terms of downloads, views, comments. So we are the most commented Devils podcast in the history of New Jersey Devils podcast. We've had so many guests come on, entertain us, like Steve Cangelosi, Ken Danico, Sean Burke, Chico Resch again, Chico, right? So I'd like to thank the fans for that. Also, I'd like to thank Vinny Parisi for forfeiting his game. So I am now on a 1-game winning streak because Vinny is not here. But I just want to say thank you, Vinny. You just gave me an easy win. So I am on a 1-game winning streak. Sorry we couldn't play the game this week. And also, just want to thank my neighbors for dealing with me in this remote setup studio. That's probably the last you'll see me here. So recognize this background. We were breaking ground on the new primetime radio studio, all powered by Nova Product Design. We'll be there. I'll be there without a set, but still, we're going to be broadcasting from there. We're going to transplant all the equipment, and we're going to build this thing, Nick, because we got a lot in store for the next upcoming Devils season. A lot of live content. Oh, and Michael Hayes said Cam Jansen. And also, one other thing for the fans listening in, as the numbers are dropping since I've been talking. Thank you. I get a lot of messages through email. Doug emails me. People message me. There are a lot of messages I actually don't get to see because it either goes to spam or you're not my friend on Facebook. I always do my best to respond back, but I get inundated. So if I don't respond back right away, it's not that I don't care. I'm probably either driving, and you probably don't want me texting and driving at the same time, but I do get the alerts on my phone. Thank you very much. Just remember, just because I don't respond back doesn't mean I hate you. It's information overload when I've got five of the billion things on my mind, including all the texts and all that, but it's much appreciated. Anyway, with that said, Matt Junio, whatever. I think that's it.
I think it's it. I think we got it all. Yeah,
we're at the top of the hour.
We kept people engaged. We don't need guests. Screw guests. We need guests. We should get more guests.
There's only one guest I want. That's Marty Brodeur. Make it happen, Nick. Make it happen.
I'm still trying to get Tom Galiti. But he keeps moving to other teams. I thought I could get him now that the Capitals are out, but now he's covering other teams. So he's still bubble bound. But after the bubble bursts, that's my goal. Tom Galiti. Let's bring Fire and Ice back.
Yeah. Bring that fire back. Well, Thank you, everybody, for watching us. We'll be back on the Sunday. I'll be back on the Sunday show this Sunday between Labor Day. Have a fun Labor Day weekend and safe Labor Day weekend. Until next time, let's go double.